for our audiences at home. If you're just joining us, it's gone just past 14 GMT. That's 5 p.m. here locally in Doha, the capital of the state of Qatar. Let's remind you, of course, of our breaking news that the Israeli military has carried out airstrikes on Hamas leadership here in Qatar. Loud explosions could be heard in the capital and plumes of smoke can be seen rising. Israeli media reports that Khalil al-Hayya and Zahir Jabarin, part of Hamas's negotiation delegation, were among the targets of the strike. Hamas officials say that all members of that leadership delegation have survived that attack. Now, Qatar's foreign ministry has released a statement on the strike saying the state of Qatar condemns in the strongest terms the cowardly Israeli attack targeting residential buildings housing several members of the Hamas political bureau in the Qatari capital, Doha. This criminal attack constitutes a flagrant violation of all international laws and norms and a serious threat to the security and safety of Qataris and residents of Qatar. The ministry affirms that security agencies, civil defense and relevant authorities immediately began responding to the incident and taking the necessary measures to contain its consequences and ensure the safety of residents and surrounding areas. The Qatari statement goes on to say, while strongly condemning this attack, the state of Qatar affirms that it will not tolerate this reckless Israeli behavior and its continued tampering with regional security, as well as any action targeting its security and sovereignty. Investigations, it says, are underway at the highest level, and further details will be announced as soon as they become available. Well, the Israeli army has also issued a statement saying the Air Force recently carried out a targeted strike against senior members of the Hamas terrorist organization. The targeted leaders had been instrumental in the organization's activities for many years and are directly responsible for the October 7 massacre and the ongoing war against the state of Israel. Prior to the strike, measures were taken to minimize harm to civilians, including the use of precision-guided munitions and additional intelligence information. Right, well, we have Nida Ibrahim, our correspondent here on set. Nida, what updates are you getting now on what's happening?
We still do not have any confirmation from the Israeli sources if the assassination attempt was successful or not, if someone had been killed or not. But we're hearing Israeli military officials calling it the Fire Summit. And why they're calling it that? It's because the Americans have proposed to Hamas a new ceasefire deal that the Hamas delegation, the senior leadership of Hamas, have been meeting to discuss it. And after that, we've heard these loud explosions that were later appeared to be this assassination attempt and attack. Of course, we've been reporting there, Sarah, that the Al Jazeera has been talking to some Hamas people who are saying that no one has been injured during these strikes, but still it remains to be seen if anyone was harmed or injured. The Israeli media is talking about several names, including, as you say there, Khalil al-Hayya, the head of the delegation, as well as Khalid Mash'al, who himself was previously the political bureau chief of the party before he's been replaced. And we're talking about names like Hussam Badran, Tahir Nounou, Musa Abu Marzouk, all senior leaderships of Hamas that we're yet to see what has happened to them. We are seeing also Israeli media talking about this decision coming jointly, not just by Israel, but also by the U.S. as well. Of course, we are still waiting for a White House confirmation from our teams there, but we can see that across the board in the Israeli political scene, Israeli military scene, there's a lot of jubilation, there are a lot of congratulations, if you may. We've seen Yair Lapid, the head of the opposition, talking about an exceptional operation in the heart of Doha.
And as you said that this is Israeli media that's reporting that this was greenlit by the US. Speaking to our senior political analyst, Marwan, he had said that it would be very surprising if it hadn't, that it hadn't known about it, considering that the biggest US base is here in Qatar.
Indeed, and we've seen how Netanyahu has been moving on with his plans, really not caring about any soul in the world other than President Donald Trump. So it would be surprising if Israel has conducted this assassination attempt without the at least knowledge of the U.S. administration. As we've said again and again that Netanyahu cares about Donald Trump's opinion. He would not go on such an attack against Qatar, a place, as you say, that holds the largest American base in the region without that prior potential coordination. Now, Israeli media is also saying that the members of the mini or the small security cabinet have been aware of that attack before it happened, and their members have been asked to remain and keep the basically the operation and the information under a lid until it actually happens.
Okay, thanks, Nida. Stay with us. Obviously, we are going to Charles Stratford, though, because he is at the location of the attack here in Doha. Charles, what are you seeing and what's the latest you're hearing from where you are, where those explosions happened?
Well, we understand the targeted site is in the area behind us, as you can see. I'll just step out of the frame there. The police basically cordoning the area off. We're unable to get into that area. Just to give you a bit of context, though, geographically, this is a large residential area containing a lot of foreign embassies. It's an area that, as is the case right the way across Qatar, is very secure. But there is a great sense of anxiety, certainly amongst the people that you can't see, that are off camera. A lot of people, as you can imagine, on their phones trying to get updates. There has been a message put out by the US Embassy in the last hour or so, saying that US citizens should shelter during what it describes as a missile strike. But yeah, this comes as a great shock to Qatar, a country renowned for its security. We've heard the Qatari Foreign Ministry obviously roundly denounce this attack, saying it's a flagrant violation of international law. But yeah, very difficult, as you can imagine, to get access to what is being reported as being a residential compound or a house in which there were meetings, and participating in those meetings were members of the Hamas negotiating team. But as you say, a statement by Hamas saying, certainly thus far, that no casualties amongst that team.
And, Israel is now calling this strike on the Hamas leadership summit of fire. Hamas has told Al Jazeera that no one has been killed in that attack. Looking at where you are, recognizing the fact that you said there are plenty of embassies. For those that don't know, there's a number of embassies there. And, of course, a huge expat community from around the world. I'm sure those embassies will be very much concerned for their citizens.
That's right. As I say, an alert was put out by the US Embassy. This is one of two main areas in Qatar where there are foreign embassies from around the world. But this is, it's easy to say, or it's correct to say, that this is a very high-end residential area. There are many civilians that live here. There are schools close by as well. There's a Lebanese school that isn't far from here. These attacks happened after school hours. It's understood. But yeah, you're right in saying that there are a lot of very panicked and stressed people at the moment, because the echoes of these explosions were heard right the way across the city and even further afield. At least 5 bangs we heard. So you can imagine for a community, a country that has never seen anything like this before, it comes as a great shock. So there'll be a lot of very nervous people going into this evening here in Qatar.
And of course, Charles, it reminds us really as residents here that feeling of when an attack happened recently by Iran because of the Israeli and US attacks on its nuclear sites. Talk us through what had happened at the time.
Well, that's right. People still talk about that. In fact, friends that I was talking to as we heard these explosions, when they happened, that's the first thing they said. That was like, my goodness, that sounds like it did the night when there were those strikes, echoing across this country. So, yeah, as I keep saying, very nervous and of great concern to people. It seems like this was an attempt at a targeted assassination. Israeli sources, Israeli officials speaking in the Israeli media have said that the army or the Israeli military took every precaution to make this very much a targeted strike and not to harm those involved. But that will have very little traction with, as you can imagine, the many tens of thousands of people that live in the area behind me, an area, as you say, that is full of embassies, that has schools, that recreational centres, mosques, a very peaceful area of the country, as indeed the entire country of Qatar is.
Okay, thank you very much. That's Charles Stratford at the scene of that attack by Israel on Qatari soil, on Hamas leadership. Let's go now to Hamda Salhout, who's following the latest developments from Jordan's capital. And she is there because the Israeli government has banned Al Jazeera from reporting inside of Israel, as well as the occupied territories. Hamda, we had the statement from the Israeli army that we had mentioned earlier, confirming that it had taken out this strike on Hamas leadership. Hamas has told Al Jazeera that no one was killed in that attack, but has there been any confirmation from the Israeli side as to whether their attack works for them?
Well, no confirmation on the results of the attacks from Israeli officials, but confirmation from the Prime Minister himself that Israel did, in fact, carry out this attack. I'm just going to read you this statement here from the Prime Minister's office that dropped just around a minute ago. Quote, "Today's action against the top terror chiefs of Hamas was a wholly independent Israeli operation. Israel initiated it, Israel conducted it, and Israel takes full responsibility." An astonishing statement from the Premier's office there, telling you that Israel has entered into a new chapter of this war, of what they are willing to do in order to achieve their military objective of defeating Hamas. It's worth mentioning that back in December of 2023, just 2 months after the war began, the head of the Shin Bet, the security chief, the internal security agency within Israel, on secret recordings that were leaked, said that Israel was going to assassinate Hamas leaders in several different countries and named Qatar as one of them. That was nearly 2 years ago, and the Israeli security services, the military alike, are confirming that this is in fact what they did. But unlike the military and Shin Bet statement, it didn't say who they attacked specifically, and it didn't say where. But Netanyahu's office is confirming that Israel did in fact attack Qatar, a country that has been assisting with mediation efforts, assisting with the release of Israeli captives, trying to find any sort of middle ground for a deal, working tirelessly with other mediators to try and get something on the table for the siege on Gaza to end. I also want to mention that American military sources within the region have just told me that they were not aware of this attack, but were only notified after. And they said they cannot speak to whether or not the White House was informed, but American military officials in the region were not aware of the attack until it happened, Sarah.
Okay, thank you very much for the update, Hamda. We will be going back to you as we try and get some of those updates from Israel.